blogger and creator of the blog Miss Right Says, as well as OMG OBGYN. I wanted to introduce all of our panelists, and then each one of them are going to give a little bit more background about who they are and what they do. So to my immediate right, I have Miss Salena Collins.
Hi.
Salena is the owner and founder of Clear Gardens Yoga Studio. I have Dr. Lisa Upshaw, and many of you know her probably already as Dr. Lisa. And Dr. Lisa is a chiropractor as well as a holistic health practitioner who specializes in acupuncture and functional nutrition, something that I think we all definitely need. To her right is Dr. Melissa Natavio, and she is the Director of Family Planning Fellowship, and she's also an assistant professor for the Department of Obstetrics and Gynecology at the Keck School of Medicine at USC. And last but not least, we have Ms. Lauren Cornell, and Lauren is a registered dietitian. How does diet potentially impact, or how can it help us with aging? But then one thing in particular that I've experienced, and I don't know about you all, but as soon as I hit 35, I started bloating more. And so I felt like no matter how much exercise I would do, and I had this really great regimen, I felt like as soon as I would eat something, even if it was gluten-free, no dairy, I would get a little uncomfortable, and I have this little pooch, which I've been trying to suck in with this dress. So what might be some suggestions on the nutrition side that might help that, if at all?
Okay, so nutrition in general is very individualized, but there's something that everybody can do that can certainly help. So in terms of aging, which I'm certainly aware of the changes that happen with that, and the bloating, so our GI motility naturally starts to slow down as we get older. And so you might notice that somebody, and I talk about poop all day long, so I apologize if this is going to be gross, but somebody who had regular bowel movements, maybe like once every day, twice a day, you know, things like that, it starts to slow down. And you notice that you're probably more sensitive to when you eat certain foods, more dense foods, you know, like mac and cheese and dairy and grains and things like that, or fats certainly slow the digestive tract down a little bit more. So you have to be kind of more acutely aware of that as you get older. Best way to attack that is, one, stay hydrated. I think we forget that. And working in a hospital in a clinical setting, we would see people come in with real symptoms thinking they are dying and they were just dehydrated. And that's a real thing, and it happens all the time. The recommendation is about 2 to 3 liters of water a day. So that's about 64 to 96 ounces, which is about 8 to 12 8-ounce cups of water a day. So if you're not drinking that, you can start there. The other thing is vegetables. I always say to people that I could be the vegetable dietitian, but every dietitian really should be the vegetable dietitian. Really easy way to do that, when you're making your meals, make sure that half of your plate is vegetables. That's it. Just start there. The other half will work itself out, but start at half a plate of vegetables. That gives you the fiber that you need. It gives you a lot of minerals and vitamins that we're probably deficient in at baseline, that just help keep things moving and reduce bloating. So now if you're increasing your fiber, you're going to experience bloating, but if you follow that with the proper hydration, you're going to be okay. And that's one of those things that's very individualized. Some people have more of a problem when they increase their fiber than others. The recommendation for fiber intake a day is about 30 to 35 grams per day for women. So if you can track your diet somehow, like there's a great free app called MyFitnessPal out there. If you can track it and look at your fiber intake for the day, just without even trying, and then just try and increase it, I would certainly recommend that for bloating and just increasing GI motility. Also, just keep in mind fats slow GI motility. So if you should certainly be getting your good fats in your diet, meaning your omega-3s and your unsaturated and polyunsaturated fats. And we need saturated fats too, just in a smaller amount. But just know that if you're eating a diet that's higher in fat, you're probably going to experience a little bit of a slowed GI motility. When you were talking about the menstrual pain and that, like cramping and things like that, you think about when I was prepping for this, I was like, oh, make sure you say this and this and this, and so I keep forgetting things. But omega-3 fatty acids, they're anti-inflammatory, and in general in the United States, we tend to be higher on the omega-6s, which are pro-inflammatory, and low on our omega-3s. So it's important to kind of flip that ratio a little bit. Omega-3s you can find, chia seeds are an understated source of them. They're incredible. Also just, fish, like fish oil, if you're not a big fish fan, you can do fish oil supplements, are great. You want to shoot for, and you can pick up a fish oil supplement and really like one of those big gel tabs will do it, or gel capsules. But yeah, and I think just the green leafy vegetables for sure. Omega-3s, like specific to what you had asked a question about before, there's a bunch of studies that show that a diet higher in omega-3s is reducing significantly the symptoms of dysmenorrhea, so just cramping. And I certainly suffered from that awfully when I was younger. I remember my mom having to pick me up from school and like throwing up awful from the pain, pretty bad. So that was a lifesaver. And it's just all about the anti-inflammatory, eating and lifestyle, and certainly stress reduction. And then one more thing too that kind of helps with all of it is keeping your gut flora and your vaginal flora in check. I think everyone could benefit from being on a probiotic. It doesn't have to be a supplemental probiotic. It can certainly be a food probiotic. So it can be just yogurt every day. I would certainly go for more of like a more natural yogurt. Like not that Yoplait is a bad thing if that's what you want to go for or something like that. But there's Greek yogurts and things like that that are out there more now. Kefir, which is a cultured cheese or cultured milk, things like that. Sauerkraut, fermented foods, that sort of thing. You can even grow your own now at home, which is pretty cool. So,
for bad menstrual cramps, if you can write this down, you would want to try a pose. It's called bound angle pose. Bound, like B-O-U-N-D, angle pose. And you could just rest in that pose for 5 minutes or 7 minutes, and literally, like, you will feel the pain of the cramps start to leave the body. So you'll want to try that.
Well, in general, women's menstrual cycles are pretty predictable. There's very little deviation. There may be some like cycles may vary within 5 days or whatnot, but in general, throughout the reproductive cycle, periods are pretty predictable. So when someone comes in saying that their periods have changed, and it's kind of a permanent change, and I look at two main things. Is there an anatomic or structural cause that may be causing it? Things like fibroids, adenomyosis, polyps, or whatnot. And then I look at hormonal causes. Is it related to thyroid, something called prolactin? Is there an imbalance of your androgen type of hormones? And then once, and then there's also something that's very commonly diagnosed called polycystic ovarian syndrome that sometimes you can't find on lab tests. So, I would delve into that just sort of as a general way of approaching that.
So the 30s don't necessarily have anything?
Not necessarily. Typically, when people's periods start to change, and that's when we expect it to, is typically leading up to menopause. The average age of menopause in the United States is the age of 51, and some people can experience, changes in the period for a few years leading up to that. But typically people have hot flushes and other type of symptoms that kind of indicate that their hormones are changing and they're going into that transition.
Can we give them all a round of applause? This event is, I guess you could say, a creation of mine because probably like all of you, I've had questions since I started visiting my OBGYN, and those questions have grown progressively as I've matured and had various experiences, and then hear stories from women of all different ages. And I found myself sometimes when I would experience something, I'd go online, like we all probably shouldn't, go to WebMD, and I'd look up something because I couldn't get a doctor's appointment right away, and so I'd say, oh my God, I have that. Or I'd find all of these forums of women very frustrated, not knowing how they could maybe treat certain things at home, or questions that maybe a lot of us have. And so I really wanted this day to be about conversation, about sisterhood and sharing, and lastly, letting you know that you're not alone, because I think so many times we suffer in silence and we think, oh my God, I'm the only person that's going through what I'm going through. And I think it's safe to say, with the number of people who've signed up for this event, it's a need, and women want to know more about what's happening with their overall health.